He'd barely touched the ball until that point, but when he made that cut on the touchdown,
looked fine.
He didn't look hurt.
We are back. This is your Holka Show presented by FanDuel. Locks of the week, position by position. These are the players that we have to have exposure to in NFL Week 6, bringing it all together at the end as we build the optimal DFS lineup live. Let's not waste any more time here. Jake, your quarterback lock of the week, Joe Burrow. He's 7,400 on FanDuel at Detroit. He's top 5 in the NFL in completion percentage above expectation. So he's been very efficient, but he hasn't been pushing the ball downfield a ton. He's kind of middle of the pack in average intended air yards. But Ty, tell us why you like him this week.
Yeah, it really comes down to, look, if you want to pay up, there are better options. There's no question about it. I'm a little hesitant on Lamar Jackson. This is probably the toughest defense he's faced so far. And the Chargers, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if this Ravens new passing offense is for real on that one. And of course, you have Kyler. I would love to get a lot of exposure to the Washington-Kansas City game, but I think a lot of people are smartly on that. Even Dak, if you want to get the 700, I don't mind as well. That would probably be the closest in the price range. But for 7,400, that's what it comes down to Joe Burrow. And I've said this on the other podcast that you mentioned this week, is that Joe Burrow's essentially turned into Ryan Tannehill. It's the efficiency. You just talked about the numbers too. He's throwing 2-3 touchdowns every single week, despite not throwing 35, 40 times a game, which a lot of people, including myself, thought that they would do again this year. So I like the efficiency. It's against Detroit. How could you not love it against Detroit? Yep. And Joe Mixon's practicing, but why not just lean a little bit on Joe Burrow again this week? And that's really what it comes down to, is if this turns out to be a game where Detroit can somehow, some way, because of the Bengals defense, keep this even remotely close, maybe we get a 35 attempt game for Joe Burrow. And at 7,400, it really comes down to, he's one of the best price per points projections. There's a few guys that are higher, but it's kind of trying to find savings elsewhere.
Yeah, and we know like one of the things that's just going to drive quarterback scoring just from a macro perspective is going to be these high team totals, right? So against Detroit, I think that Cincinnati's going to be putting up some points. I don't know if it's too much of a spoiler, but there's going to be some other guys that we talk about from the Cincinnati side of the ball in this segment. One thing that's interesting, if you are stacking this game up, there really isn't anything on the Detroit side to like at this point besides like maybe going to one of the running backs on the Detroit side. Do you have anyone on Detroit if you wanted to run that back?
Swift, or if Daryl Williams makes a surprise return, maybe him. I know a lot of people are probably looking at him around St. Brown. Maybe it really keeps coming down to, from a seasonal perspective, what it has for some of the concerns with Detroit is why just not stop Hawkinson and tell Jared Goff to try and beat you with the other weapons. And I could see St. Brown doing it again because Cephas just got hurt. But honestly, the Browns and the Lions, granted, the Browns' talent is vastly superior. Just hit my mic. Vastly superior to the Lions, but the problem is it's a different person every single week. And if I went that way, that would be a GPP dart throw on St. Brown. If I went that direction, I'd rather probably just try to go Swift.
Yeah, it's really tough to buy in on this passing game right now for Detroit, so I'm with you on that. But let's stay in this game, Jake. A couple running back locks of the week that we're going to talk about. But the first one, Joe Mixon, 7K at Detroit. Again, like we saw it last week, he came back and looked healthy, but they didn't give him that full workload. And now we have Pirine. I believe he's still on the COVID list as well, right? So tell us why Mixon is your running back lock of the week.
There are a lot of reasons right there. 7,000. Pirine already practicing on Wednesday, again today, Thursday. I think actually today was a full practice compared to yesterday. 7,000 against Detroit. You want to start any running back who's going to be bell cow version against Detroit. And maybe he's not as normal 25 touches, but I wanted to bring up Mixon because we were talking about the quarterback. And like, if you don't agree with me, if you don't want to go Burrow and you pay further up at quarterback, well, the way to still get on the Bengals side of things, just go get Joe Mixon. Right. Just because, look at go to Aaron Jones. What's the difference between Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon on any given week? They have similar ceilings and they have similar floors, but one is facing Chicago's defense, which has actually been playing really good this year. And I think that could be a grind out game, even for the Packers. Like if the Bears want to win that game, they're winning it by like three scores total, 17-14, 20-16, 27, like that kind of score. It's not going to be a high pace. So I'd rather just save the 1,000 and go to Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I think that he just seems too cheap, right? If he comes back to any sort of role that he basically had at the beginning of the year, like 7K is just too cheap for him. But I guess, are you a little bit concerned that maybe they don't go back to like that role just because, I mean, he did get banged up pretty early in the year. Like maybe they think he can't hold up under that. Like, is that the argument on the other side of this?
I mean, that would be on the other side of the argument, but at the same time, he'd barely touched the ball until that point. But when he made that cut on the touchdown,
looked fine.
He didn't look hurt. He didn't even look like, you could, there's other players out there where you're like, all right, he doesn't look, AJ Brown last week didn't look like he was 100%. And
Hawkinson,
despite being, So, but the thing is, Joe Mixon looked fine. And you know what? If Samaje Perine wasn't dealing with the COVID situation, I'd probably be a little bit more hesitant. But for what's going on, they just might need him. I mean, there might not even be much of a choice.
Yeah, that's the side I'm on as well. So let's talk about your second running back lock of the week, Daryl Henderson. He's 7,300. You have to pay up a little bit more than we have recently for him, but at the Giants, just a smash spot, right?
That's really what it comes down to, is like a little bit right there. Here's the only downside. Everybody knows who Daryl Henderson is. I don't really have to talk up Daryl Henderson, the player. I don't even have to really talk up the Giants matchup, because the Giants' only concern on defense is really the secondary. But really what it comes down to as well is Daryl Henderson's one of 5 running backs in the NFL over 80% of the touches when healthy. The only downside to Daryl Henderson is health. If he gets hurt in this game, that's what the downside is, that you lose. But, you could have Saquon Barkley in your lineup the week that he gets hurt, and then that happens as well. So I'm not playing like, I'm not going to use Daryl Henderson because he get hurt, because they could all get hurt. I understand it, but for 7,300, there's not much else to put into this one. There's not a lot of thought process behind it. Just put Daryl Henderson in there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll throw, I guess, an honorable mention to a couple of these cheap guys. We have Daryl Williams, who's 5,200 on FanDuel. We were literally just talking about Damian Williams last week.
Him and Hine on Daryl.
Yeah, what do you think? So he's 5,200, man. That's just like a price point that makes like you can get up to, like, there's a lot of studs on this slate, right? It's different than last week. So like it does unlock a lot. There's no one even close to him, really. If you wanted to go a little bit more contrarian, maybe Javonte at 5,600. But I guess, do you have any take on these like really cheap guys like Daryl, Damian, those type of guys? Booker, I guess, too.
Damian's not that cheap for one reason. I was going to throw in a third running back who I think is going to be part of my lineup. I actually didn't build one again this week.
Nice, I
but
like that better.
Antonio Gibson, Kansas City. That should be another smash. That just is the whole like, it's a shin. The team even came out today and like, look, the shin's not limiting him. Any team that gives him over 20 touches, the shin's probably not that big of an issue. So I'm going for these opportunities here. But the Daryl Williams, I have hesitancy. In my season-long rankings, I have him as a top 24 running back this week. We also remember there's 4 teams on a bye. But on top of it is, yes, he's stepping in for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't think the gap is that big from Clyde Edwards-Helaire to Daryl Williams. But like similar to Barkley to Booker, that's a huge gap. I don't think the gap is that big, but they weren't even giving Edwards-Helaire 20 touches. This doesn't feel like the free square. And I feel like a lot of people are going to treat it like the free square. And that's actually why I'm fading Daryl Williams as a whole.
Yeah, I heard Davis talk about this earlier in the week, Davis Maddock, and he was saying that maybe it just means we see a little bit more of Tyreek Hill in the backfield. Maybe we see a little bit more of Mecole Hardman, who's also very cheap, and it doesn't go to Daryl. So I think that's something to think about if you're, I guess, giving them the free
I'm with Davis on
tag.
that one, unless Tyreek Hill is all of a sudden not playing this week, which we still have to pay attention for. Then
are we worried about that, like the injury with him?
After not being on the field again on Thursday, I am. You're going to have to pay attention.
You didn't practice that?
Nope. Still have Friday and Saturday, and I'm sure we'll probably get some type of news tonight on it. But if he does, put it this way, this is very simple. If Tyreek Hill is out, then I would come around on Daryl Williams, because then they probably have to lean on him and Jerick McKinnon some more.
Yeah, hopefully.
You know what that means, though?
What?
If there's no Tyreek Hill, everybody's going to slam Josh Gordon into the lineups.
Dude, I mean, are you going to be one of those people? Because I don't know if I am. I'm just going to play Travis Kelce everywhere, probably, right?
Boom. There you go. That's what I was going to say. I would just like all over Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Or maybe even Mecole Hardman.
I don't mind Harmon as a play at all, because he's so cheap, man. I think he's going to be involved. Like, he's had a pretty significant target share the last few weeks, even with Tyreek in there. So I like him quite a bit with CEH out, especially. So yeah, I think that if you're listening to this later, hopefully by this point there is a little bit of Tyreek Hill clarity. But before we move on to wide receivers, this is our weekly reminder, Jake, that the show is on all major podcast platforms. Leave me a rating and review on Apple. Subscribe on Spotify. It would mean the absolute world. There's links for both of those in the description of this video. So your locks of the week, we have a couple of guys to get to here, Jake, and the first one is in this Kansas City game. So Terry McLaurin, he's 7,400 against the Chiefs. He's third in the NFL in weighted opportunity rating in the last 4 weeks, something I'm using pretty pretty heavily in my analysis. So, man, this Chiefs defense just is not very good, right? Is that what it comes down to?
And the Chiefs defense isn't very good, and the Washington defense isn't very good. Neither of their defenses are very good, at least against the pass.
Yeah, like there's just going to be a ton of points in this game, like no matter what. That's pretty much what we would come to. Like, nice little analysis, guys. Good job.
No, really what it comes down to is you don't have to overthink everything. Yeah. Not everything needs a ton behind it. I don't ever really pay much attention. Do you ever put me on full screen? Am I on full screen?
You're on full screen right now.
Because this man is the only person, Tyler Haneke, my jersey behind me, is the only person that's stopping the Chiefs or stopping the Washington team from putting up points on the Chief is because his aggression level is 10, whether he's good, bad, or he doesn't know how to turn it down. But that's a good thing for fantasy. When it goes sideways, we see it goes sideways. But I bring up Jameis Winston all the time. I said this about him at the beginning of the season, that he is Jameis Winston in a different version. Not necessarily 5,000 yards and 33 touchdowns, but that aggression level where he's just not going to stop being him. And, that's what's got him to this point. This is what's got him bounced around in the XFL as a backup quarterback, but he always gives a 10 on the aggression scale. Terry McLaurin, I mean, I'm almost intrigued for Tyler Heineke's stack of McLaurin, depending on how I was saving him. I wasn't even going to bring up Heineke because I was kind of curious how our lineup was going to turn out. I was going to save quarterback for probably last on this one. Yeah. I expect this to be a high-scoring game, very high-scoring game.
Yeah, I think that side of the stack is going to be pretty popular because it's so cheap, and obviously there's a tight end that we're going to talk about quickly. But Jake, you might want to get in on this Pristine auction unboxing game, man, because you get a couple more of those jerseys. I bet you can get a Heineke jersey for pretty cheap over there. So I'll connect you, man. We'll get you going.
ODU Heineke jersey. So, I mean, it's my alma mater, so I had to get that one. I think this is the only place you can get it is around here. Michael Thomas signed is underneath there until he comes back. That's why he's buried.
Well, fair enough, man. Every time I put a jersey up, someone gets hurt, so I'm scared to put the McCaffrey jersey back up there. But your second lock of the week at wide receiver, this is the week, Jake, that Jakobi Meyers scores a touchdown. If we say it every week, we eventually have to be right. He's 5,800 versus Dallas. Yeah, what do we do? We go back to the well with Jakobi, hope he scores eventually?
No, but here's the thing. It's okay if he doesn't. He's putting up double digits in most games. Yeah, even without. And the price at 5,800, if he finally does get a touchdown and against Dallas, and then there's opportunity for this game, it's a great situation for him. 5,800, I've been the one who's joked, and I think we did it 2 weeks ago when I laughed at you and I said, yeah, Jakobi never scores touchdowns. I don't care about that this week. I'll be willing for the 5,800, even if he doesn't, to put him in my lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to keep saying it because I think it's funny at this point. So, like, maybe it'll be week 16 by the time I'm right. I have no idea.
If he was Tony Pollard, he would have 10 touchdowns by now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother. I don't like this Dallas team, like, just has my mind in such a pretzel at this point that, like, I'm scared to even go back there, because what if, like, Dallas just continues running the ball as much as they have, and then this game kind of gets a little bit gross. Like, I like the price for Jakobi Meyers for sure, and it seems like a decent buy low opportunity almost always with him because his price doesn't move because he isn't scoring. So yeah, I don't know. Let's move back to one more wide receiver that we're going to talk about today. I guess we're going back to this Cincinnati game. Jamar Chase is 7,800 at Detroit, second in the NFL in percent of team air yard market share, only behind Brandon Cooks. So I have no problems whatsoever with paying this price tag, but I think some people might see that and be like, oh, these other guys, we got T. Higgins, we got Boyd, we got a nice price discount on Joe Mixon. Like, Chase maybe ends up going a little bit lower than he should.
And that's kind of why I was bringing him up, is there are, if you're kind of going this high, this is if you're going with the Burrow stack to be a little bit different. And again, we've kind of danced around, and I know you have with other guests, but just you and me together have already danced around some of the other probably popular stack. So we didn't even talk about the fact that Baltimore can get beat deep. So you're going to see Herbert with Mike Williams. Right. That's going to be a common one. I would be surprised to see Herbert, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen, and maybe even Austin Eckler. Those are that gets really pricey. But you're going to see popular ones. I don't expect the Burrow Chase one, despite how good Chase has been, to be very popular, because people think run out the clock, and then Chase's price. Chase is now up here, deservedly so, with Justin Jefferson and Hopkins. He's, if you look at 200 more than DJ Moore. I do like DJ Moore more. But if you're going with the Burrow Chase would be the stack that I go. I wouldn't try to figure out. I love T. Higgins. I like Tyler Boyd, but I wouldn't try to figure that out. If you're going to go Burrow, I would just put Chase in there, and that's why I brought him up.
Yeah, Boyd's target share actually hasn't been very good with T. Higgins and Chase both
Nah,
in the
he's by far
game.
the third.
Yeah, it has to
Yeah.
be, right? So I think if there's people that still, this is not an Arizona situation where it's just like you pick one and hope to guess right. Like it's pretty clearly Jamar Chase is the alpha, at least in my opinion. He's getting those deeper targets, which we want to see. But you got to pay for it. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, Jake, that we get Jamar Chase at like sub 10% on FanDuel this week. And if that's the case, I really like him as a pivot. He might not necessarily be like one of my locks, but like we've talked about it, if you're playing cash games, you're playing some of these smaller field tournaments, like a lot of times just like a really nice price pivot off of someone that's going to be really popular, that's enough to get you there if you have a lot of conviction. So I like that call quite a bit. This next guy, there really isn't a pivot at this point that's like anywhere close to the type of usage. So tight end, it's not a fun position, but Ricky Seals-Jones has been pretty fun. 5K on FanDuel in this game that everyone wants to jam people in against Kansas City. I mean, I'll let you speak to it, but man, he's just such a good play. It's not even funny.
And that's really what it comes down to. It's just if you're not going to pay up for Kelsey, which is always in play, if you're not going to, I'm actually hesitant on the entire Raiders offense, not only because everything that's going on with them and the coaching change, but also just watched last week as this all broke. Like the team for the past 2 weeks has looked kind of messy. I love some Dalton Schultz, but Dalton Schultz is now up to the third highest. He's more expensive than TJ Hawkinson, and honestly, deservedly so. So if you're going elsewhere, the easiest 5,000 Ricky Seals-Jones, just don't even think about it. You either pay up for Kelsey or just go down to Ricky Seals-Jones. Don't even, Hunter Henry is interesting and seasonal, sure. Mark Andrews is always in play, but for 6,300, I would just drop down to Ricky Seals-Jones. And don't even get me started on why the hell Robert Tonyan is even over 5,000 still. If you, don't try and play like, oh, this is gonna be weak here. He catches a touchdown. He's got 0, 0, 0, 0, and 1. So
Right.
and he's got, I think, 1 catch in 4 of the 5 games too. So just go Ricky Seals-Jones.
Yeah, I mean, just the amount of snaps that Ricky Seals-Jones was playing last week, 82 of 83 offensive snaps. He had 8 targets. Like, I don't really understand why he's priced where he is. He had 3 red zone targets, Jake. So, like, Ricky Seals-Jones, like, he should be 6K this week. So let's move on from that. Your lock DST of the week. You're paying all the way up at 5K. Is it because they're playing the Giants at this point? Like we talked about Henderson a little bit, but yeah, we can spend at least 30 seconds on why this makes sense. But I love paying up to be contrarian at defense. So I'm a fan of this.
And that's what it is. It's the contrarian defense. I do like Denver, as I just mentioned. I think that could be interesting. I think a lot of people are going to be on Green Bay against Justin Fields, and deservedly so. But if I'm paying up and I can get to the Rams, even if Daniel Jones is at quarterback, Daniel Jones can turn the ball over plenty himself. Daniel Jones can take plenty sacks himself. If it's Mike Glennon, oh my God, I am going to find a way to get the Rams defense. But I think they're in play no matter what, mostly because it's not just that they're going to give the Giants problem no matter who's at quarterback. You have no Barkley, you have Booker back there, and the fact that they can put up points, so you can't let the Giants kind of try and pull what the Bears will probably try to do. The Giants secondary is good enough. I don't know if it's good enough to limit the Rams to under 20 points. I think the Bears could pull that off with Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't put money on it, but if you told me between those two teams, and that's where I'm going here, is between the Giants and the Bears, who's more likely to keep their opponent under 20 and grind out the game? I would say it's the Bears, and for that purpose, you might force the Giants offense to try and play catch up no matter what anyway.
Yeah, Giants probably have a bottom 5 or so offensive line, so definitely a good spot for the Rams if you do have the salary to pay up. All right, so everyone, we know what time it is. It's time to pause the video. I want to know in the comments your lock of the week now that we have Jake's, and then we're going to build a FanDuel team. You ready for this, Jake?
I am ready for this. I'm kind of curious how this is going to turn out.
I actually like that you're waiting now to build this, because this is something it's more fun if there's a little bit more. You're like basically ripping out your team in about 3 minutes, so now we get to at least think through this as a group. This team will be in the listener league, FanDuel.com/Holka, so make sure you get in there before it fills. It's rake free, 3 entry max, $5, big prizes, one of the best contests in all of DFS. Lineups from Jake, TJ Hernandez, and Rich Rebar will be in there every single week, so get in there before it fills. Jake, what are we doing here?
We're doing let's just put the 3 running backs in, all 3 of them.
All right.
Gibson,
all
Mixon, and Henderson. Yeah. Gibson, Henderson, Mixon, do all that, and then kind of work our way back from there.
All right. See, this is I always like enjoy like the different builds because like you like to go to like your best plays first and then you build around that. Reeves likes to start with a stack, and basically TJ likes to start with what he thinks is like his most like leveraged play. So it's like you guys are all like completely different, which is actually super valuable to talk through all the different ways. So Mixon. So as of now, we have 3 1 p.m. players. The 4 p.m. slate is actually a little bit weird this week. So all right, so 6,500 the rest of the way. Is there any defense that's not 5K? Or we could just put the 5K defense in and try and build it on that.
I don't think I'm going to want to get to the Rams.
All right, let's get a placeholder somewhere in here, something a little bit cheaper. Vikings was one that we talked about before.
Talked about Packers.
Okay.
Put them in there. It's Justin Fields.
Cool.
Justin Fields isn't even running. That's the biggest problem. I love Justin Fields, but his hesitancy that he admitted is just carrying over. He just doesn't even want to run on top of it.
He's not throwing really that deep either. I mean, he's done a pretty good job.
Well, that's because they gave him the Tecmo Bowl playbook, and then they said, all right, we'll give you the NFL Blitz playbook. So here's like 6 plays. Enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, let's just like throw it to the intermediate every single time, essentially. All right, so 6,900 the rest of the way. You had about 4 players at that price point last week, Jake, so you should feel pretty at home right now.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I did have the 6,900. So that's what it was. I knew it was something.
Yeah, nice.
Let's put McLaurin and Heineke in and see how this turns out. Let's go with the Washington situation. Because
Heineke,
while you're doing that, put in Kelsey, because I'm going to bring it back in that same game, but I'm going to go to the Kelsey route instead of the Tyreek Hill route.
I like it. Man, Heineke, like, if we get, like, I mean, he's honestly playing for his job in some ways, right? Like, maybe we don't see Fitzpatrick come back right away just because Heineke has played well. He played well in the playoffs for them, and they really like him. But I don't know, man. I think he's going to go out there and start slinging it. I love Heineke. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, I just mentioned that on. So I do a local Washington Huddle show here, and we coach Washington football team. It's on the Wavy or NBC and Fox channel, and we were talking about that last night. And he said, "What do you think, Fitzpatrick? Is he going to have the job when he comes back?" Because they're speculating Week 7. I said, "Not if they're winning, because they might evaluate. Like, Fitzpatrick was always a stopgap to begin with, and not saying Heineke is the answer for the next 10 years, but if they are winning, it's not. It's not the situation with like Jimmy Garoppolo coming back and he's going to be the quarterback for the 49ers because they're contending. This is a little bit different situation. So I would say that Heineke needs to fall on his face 2 or 3 weeks in a row before they make the swap, but which could conceivably happen, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So 5,800 the rest of the way. We need 2 wide receivers. As of now, we have 0 players at the late game. So if that changes your mindset at all.
I know. I don't usually love that, but you know what? At the same time, sometimes you can just sit back and watch yourself, hopefully not get chased down, and then watch yourself get chased down.
This is true. Normally, it just gives you a lot of hope that you don't deserve.
Michael Pittman's at 58. Put Michael Pittman in.
Reeves thought that he'd be one of your locks today.
He's not one of my locks. I do love Michael Pittman. I think because he knows I love Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
And did even before this year. But
fair enough.
Michael Pittman, which still gives us 5,800. I could put in Jacoby.
You could.
Or I could, you know what? I mean, there's my only pivot, really, is I could put in Jacoby, which gives me the floor. If I need to chase and make some points, I drop $100 to Rondell Moore, and hopefully Rondell Moore just goes ballistic against Cleveland.
Jake Ciely, everyone. Want to remind you guys that I do give away free sports memorabilia every single week. So check out this video right here next to see what I pulled from the Week 6 Pristine Auction Mystery Box.